Being born into the Jackson family sounds like hitting the genetic lottery, but inheriting the most recognized surname on Earth comes with a suffocating catch. Your life is never entirely your own. Jaafar's father, Jermaine, helped lay the groundwork for this empire. As a founding pillar of the Jackson Five, he orchestrated a globally dominant sound. Behind that initial success was Jaafar's grandfather, Joe Jackson. He enforced a standard of perfection with an iron will that left zero room for error. Then there was his uncle. To the public, Michael Jackson was a moonwalking deity. To young Jaafar, visiting Neverland Ranch meant spending time with a warm, playful family member who simply wanted to build a playground of pure wonder. Growing up inside these walls created a unique psychological trap. Music was the native language. But when the baseline for success is shattered stadium records, the expectations become mathematically impossible for any normal person to meet. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of cardiac arrest at 50 years old. Jaafar was exactly 12. The news triggered a worldwide meltdown. While millions of fans mourned the loss, a preteen boy was trying to comprehend the sudden, very permanent disappearance of his uncle. Grief rarely gets a private space when your last name is Jackson. Tabloids and talk shows ruthlessly dissected the family's trauma, analyzing every rumor while the surviving relatives were actively mourning. The world demanded a spectacle, forcing the family to physically and emotionally carry the burden of a televised memorial under glaring stadium lights. By the time Jaafar reached his teenage years, he realized he had inherited the family's distinct vocal ability and physical rhythm. Yet every note he sang was immediately measured against the ghost of the greatest entertainer in history. A rational response to that level of scrutiny is to choose a quiet, anonymous life. But Jaafar chose to walk directly into the fire anyway, committing himself to building his own artistic identity from scratch. He faced a brutal binary trap set by the media. If he sounded too much like his uncle, critics would dismiss him as a cheap imitation. If he abandoned the Jackson sound entirely, he'd alienate the built-in audience. He had to walk a razor-thin line. He solved this by leaning heavily into a distinct R&B vocal range and modern choreography, honoring the lineage without copying routines. He also bypassed the traditional tabloid machinery. By using social media to speak directly to the public, he presented himself exactly as he was, a grounded, humorous young man focused entirely on his craft. This direct channel neutralized the nostalgia act. He began gathering a new, younger demographic of fans who were streaming his music because they actually liked Jaafar, not just his last name. By his late teens, the constant, suffocating hum of internet comparison forced a choice: retreat or redefine success. Jaafar chose to decouple his self-worth from the stadium-filling metrics of the 80s, focusing instead on the specific, tangible progress made within his own recording sessions. He put his head down and did the unglamorous work. He spent years in studios refining his tone, making mistakes, and experimenting with his sound in public to become a highly capable recording artist. By proving he could hold his own as an independent musician, he built an armor of undeniable skill. Nobody could credibly claim he was relying entirely on nepotism. In 2022, Lionsgate and producer Graham King announced an officially authorized biographical film about Michael Jackson. It immediately became the most heavily scrutinized casting call in Hollywood. The producers exhausted a massive global search before looking inside the family tree. They selected Jaafar not because of his DNA, but because he possessed the precise, battle-tested artistic identity necessary to carry the film. The preparation was relentless. He underwent intense vocal and movement coaching, spending thousands of hours absorbing archival concert and interview footage. This technical research forced Jaafar to spend thousands of hours looking into the eyes of a relative he had lost at 12 years old, merging high-level character study with his own deeply personal history. When the project finally materialized, the reaction was immediate. Viewers certainly noticed the eerie physical resemblance, but what anchored their attention was the deep emotional vulnerability he brought to the screen. He delivered a performance rooted in deep personal autonomy, treating his uncle's story with the nuance of an original interpretation rather than a technical mimicry. The gravity shifted. The press stopped treating him solely as a proxy for Michael and began asking him about his own creative choices, his own music, and his own future. JAAFAR Jackson proved that you don't survive a massive legacy by running away from it. You survive by putting in the grueling, quiet work to define your own voice. Only then can you step back into that massive shadow and claim it as your inheritance, instead of letting it become your prison.